I am recording to the cloud. Welcome, welcome.
Good to see you.
Happy 11/11.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. Happy 11/11. So this past weekend out in Plymouth, there was a huge gathering. Lisa, who is the chair chair of um oh God, Ohio Assembly.
Uh-huh.
Hold on one second. Listen, I'm sorry, Ryan's calling me. I have to answer. So I have
Okay,
all right.
pausing the recording. We're back.
We're back. So anyway, yes, there was a huge gathering. Lisa from Ohio came out.
Mhm.
And and so people came down from Maine. I know that Vanessa was there, that she's the coordinator on Maine. A bunch of our people were there, all of Keith's group out in Easton, that area. Uh, Joe Gamboni was there, our ombudsman. Ron and Bonnie traveled from the West out. So we have been paying attention to what's going on in Ohio because their assembly is rising, and they have been recognized by the de facto. And they just executed ex parte Mulligan, which is essentially a stand down order that they are now ready to take back the reins. The de
Mhm.
facto has recognized them. Initially, when they began becoming well known, yes, there was a lot of concern for their security in particular by the Continental Marshals. So the Continental Marshals arranged for them to have that's Lisa and her husband, because both are very active. And they arranged to make sure that they were protected 24/7, because of course, there are going to be some parts of the de facto that do not want to see this happen. So
Yeah,
there
there may
was
be pushback.
Yeah, exactly. So there was worry about that. So they made sure, um, but they have been really taking it very seriously. No nonsense. The whole point was people need to come together, let go of whatever attachments you have to the old corporate structures, the way that they have done business, the way that they do business in those old systems, in that corporate, government service agencies, is not the way that real Americans do business on land and soil. And so it's been really a huge shift. And so we've been paying close attention. We've been taking lots and lots of guidance from those guys, and that's kind of what has fueled our. So we've created an informal Q&A sort of session on Tuesday nights. This past Saturday, we here on Western County have been have a Western County. The counties on Western Mass, primarily Hampden and Hampshire, have been meeting physically in person, and more people have been coming. And so we've started up again after the summer hiatus. And we decided that with all of the everything that's happening, all of the confirmations that we are now getting, that if you do it right, it absolutely works. The de facto has no choice but to recognize we need to really take this seriously and really put the pedal to the metal. And so we decided we were going to be holding a weekly, because Ron, our co-coordinator, he's been very adamant about we need to meet more. We need to meet more. People need to be talking, and we need people to not just talk and ask questions, but to be willing to take action. Because, all of this stuff where people are stuck in the paperwork and they can't figure it out and they can't comprehend that, we can't deal with that. I mean, certainly there are, and there are people in assembly who are really, they don't mind holding hands and leading and letting people be confused and all of that, and try and working to help them. But we're kind of at the place where we can't do that anymore. We can't focus. A lot of us who are movers and shakers and action oriented can't spend our
We
time
need to
doing that.
have a welcome committee who's willing, who have
Exactly.
people who have
Exactly.
lots of patience.
Exactly. And so, there's been talk of we need a 101 to give people guidance on paperwork and all that. And yes, absolutely there is a need for that, but all of us cannot focus our attention on that. We need to worry about, okay, how do we figure out how to create, how do they Ohio has their own silver. They have their own, they have they work with a
Okay,
mint.
Just as
So,
a comparison, just as a comparison,
mhm.
how many people are in Ohio? How many people, or how many, let me say that again. How many people are on Ohio, and how many people as compared to how many people are on Massachusetts? Can is there do you know, can you answer that?
I know that there's over 500 people in Ohio.
Okay.
5 assembly people who are, and I'm not just saying, I'm saying just assembly. We know that there are many, many, many disparate groups that are sovereign oriented that want the same thing as us. Here in Massachusetts, our assembly, people that have gone that formalized route and have joined us and say, "Hey, I want to be part of the creating the original alternative government," there are less than 200. But
We've
we've I mean, we've exploded in since I've been here. So, we've exponentially been growing and growing and growing. And out on the East Coast, Keith's group, they're in they're above Plymouth County. So Easton is more, I don't know,
Yep,
it's kind of like Waltham area or out sort of towards that general direction, kind of.
a little bit more, teeny bit more north.
Yeah, yeah. So they have really kind of been focusing on being the front door to bring people in, to give people the basics, the fundamentals, working on, all right, we need to help people to get them to where they're not scared to take the steps and all of that. And so they've been doing a really good job of that. Here in the West, we realize that we need to do a little bit more of that as well. And so hence we decided we're going to now do a weekly meeting on Zoom. We're working on a multifaceted brochure that will not be too overwhelming for people, and we're gonna print them, and we're gonna ask all of the folks out here in this side of Massachusetts to get out and leave piles of brochures everywhere. And in the brochure, we will include information on how to join us for the Tuesday night Q&A. It's going to be from 6 to 7 p.m. standing meeting, not meeting per se, but Q&A, because this is not formal committee based, such
Mhm.
as that is the lawful governing structure of what you do as part of assembly, but it is a Q&A, informal, to hopefully meet and greet, kind of bringing more people in that have questions so that we can really start to get, we need more participation, and we really need for the de facto to know that we are here. Now, many of us notified all of them, everyone and their brother. We did our best. We put out the paperwork, but so many people have not done that. And see, that's working against us because the de facto thinks so. There's 10 or 11 of these sovereign, but no, there's a lot more. And so if you sit in silence, afraid to say, I'm here, that's the problem. And so nothing's happened to any of us. I mean, we continue to do our business, and I feel pretty, if anything, I feel perfectly safe and almost like I am flying above the radar. And I've kind of always felt that. So now is the time. We now can see that this is happening, that the de facto has no choice but to stand down if you do it correctly. And again, they're not going to go away. They have work to do. It's just that they've gone so far out of their lane because there was nobody there to reel them back in. And that's going to be a process of stepping back, stepping back, stepping back. There are a lot of things that have been happening in the commercial, the de facto political realm, that we have actually been seeing a stepping back of some of the overreach, because all of this movement further and further and further snowballing, creating this behemoth, which is the DC blob. That's the federal oversight structure. That's the complete opposite of how the country was created, the way that we set up the government, how they were even supposed to go. And so there has been a gradual backpedaling, and you have to unbind, and you have to start with the current and move backwards. And so that is what we have been noticing they were doing. And this is probably going to be a trigger warning for some people, but the whole Roe versus Wade, that was an absolute backstepping of something that never should have been under a federal umbrella at all. And I'm not saying that the, okay, how do I even describe it? the intention was because if the states can't recognize that this is something that needs protection, that the Fed's going to take it over, that's actually the ends justifying the means. It's not correct as far as the way the country was set up. It is up to the individuals in every state to change the government structure that they have within their state level. It is not up to the Fed to come in and say the right thing to do is that we take it all. And I'm not saying that the intention behind that
Well,
was not right, because I agree with
this
it.
is the difference. This is the difference between um a republic and a democracy.
Absolutely. And
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 the
the
ends do not
fault,
justify the means. That is what's allowed the DC blob to gain more and more and more bloated power and create this massive police state that everyone is now in fear of. So we need to dial all of that back. Like the whatever the meat of the topic is or not, you have to look at the system. And so that's what I invite people to do, is try to disconnect from the emotional charge of the system. Because as someone who grew up as an absolute liberal Democrat for most of my life, I was all pro women's reproductive rights. How dare they? You know what I mean? But then COVID showed me that bodily autonomy, which is my body, my choice, really, they don't care about that when they're mandating shots. So
correct. It's an
obviously, and that was
illusion.
right,
It's an illusion to hook women
exactly,
in
by
to
their emotions.
believing
Yep,
that they have bodily autonomy.
yep,
So it's not about, if somebody is up in arms and defensive and freaking out right now, being able to say, hold on, you are having an emotional reaction to something that's not even real. Okay.
yep,
So what I know that this is the illusion that you've been pumped with and programmed with.
yes,
Let's pull apart this illusion
yep,
that fosters this idea that this means bodily autonomy.
yep,
Who is it that pushed this falsity? Why did they push this falsity? And and the reality is that you don't. And COVID is the proof that you don't.
exactly,
And
exactly.
it's not about if it were about reproductive autonomy, then the mass sterilizations that have taken place with COVID injections, right, would not be a reality.
Right, right,
So, and you would comprehend the idea that you took something into your body, you didn't know what you took into your body and what the repercussions of that were.
right. And the
You didn't
government was
realize
forcing that. The government was forcing
the,
that by
the
indirectly,
mandate.
indirectly by allowing businesses to force it. And I'm here to tell you, the state governments did indeed force it. I worked for Massachusetts corporate state government, and you lost your job if you didn't do it. So absolutely, the government mandated and forced the complete opposite of bodily autonomy.
And that
So
was unlawful
right.
and illegal.
Yep. So the whole point is people need to get out of that cognitive dissonance silo. It's really just a drumbeat to keep people hypnotized
Yeah,
into thinking
yeah,
something illusory, like you said, is
yeah. It's
real.
the hypnosis. It's the hypnosis.
Yeah.
So let's look at what is truly empowering women
Yep.
and pull apart all of the pieces. I think it's really healthy to do that. So this is super exciting. It's really exciting and a milestone
It
that
is a huge
Ohio has been able
milestone.
to do this. And how soon can we get our hands on those brochures? Because we both know of multiple groups that that would benefit
Yeah.
from those brochures and from comprehending the difference between what does it mean for what does it mean that Trump has dissolved the corporation? What does that mean? Is it true? What does that mean? And what's the difference between the de facto and the de jure? And how, if it's true that Trump truly dissolved the corporation and he is moving forward towards bringing back the republic, how do we participate locally, look at what he is saying he's doing, and work locally to ensure that the de facto does not overstep its bounds, that it's in place to satisfy the requirements and the obligations that they were created to
Mm-hmm.
satisfy? How do we work with them as their bosses to decide what it is that we want them to do? Right? That comes a little bit later, but truly keeping that separate in our minds to comprehend it's not about a dissolution of the republic, of the Republican form of
Government.
limited government, right? That it is utilizing limited government to perform certain functions, and the only way that they're not, right? Because power can corrupt if they're not held in check.
Absolutely, and it has.
So
We've seen it.
how do we ensure that ego doesn't eventually corrupt? We keep an eye on it. We become actively involved. We like it or not. This is how we make sure that we're in by being involved, by taking responsibility, by taking on leadership roles, by utilizing terms for the
Mm.
roles that we're taking on, by participating, not just saying what you want and pointing the finger, but rolling up your sleeves.
Yeah, that that's a big thing. Be the change you want to see. Don't just say, "I would like this," and then sit there and wait for other people to do the work.
Fall back into the illusion
Yep.
and into the illusion that elected officials are going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So this is a huge milestone. It's a huge it's worthy of a huge celebration. And we start tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow night
Yes, we do.
is the first Tuesday night meeting.
Yep.
I think we're just gonna pause here for a moment to say I think this is a good size, a good digestible piece of information for people to digest. So we're just gonna stop the recording.
Sounds good.